Eddy MacKenzie, welcome.
Ooh.
In the flesh. How's it going, man?
It's very good. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. I'm just super excited because obviously you know the reasons. We've got the professional setup now, so we'll see what happens.
Double vision.
Indeed. So the purpose of these podcasts, they're called Silas Talks to Everyone. It's about fun little life lessons and, sort of looking back on your career so far. Mm-hmm. And you had a hell of a career so far already. Right? Because I did a little bit of research, went on the old Facebook and Instagram, a bit of IMDb.
Bit of old digging, yes.
Indeed. No, I had, just the classics. But, so, let's start with the basics. You're a musical comedian, also musician in a band called Panda Car.
Oh, yes,
right?
Indeed, yes.
There were some other projects involved there. I've also had a look at your LinkedIn.
Oh.
There was a lot of Shakespeare.
Oh, yes.
And Santa Claus at Christmas, couple of pantos, to get you all excited and warmed up. And then there was a couple of TV appearances, Mr. MacKenzie.
There may have been. There may well have been.
It was actually quite funny to see you on Mrs. Brown's Boys.
That is a classic clip now.
Yes, and then there's obviously I literally told you the answer, which we're going to have to go into because that's a hell of a story.
Insanity, yes.
And the big reveal is that you have recently been gallivanting about on the red carpet, sir. On the red carpet itself. And it's part of a bit of a curveball, a horror film of all sorts.
Of all the things, yes.
But not any horror film, because it is Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Which is, if your childhood wasn't ruined enough so far, then Eddie's taking a massive swing at it with a fucking pickaxe.
We're doing what we can, yes.
We gotta traumatize those kids somehow.
They're getting too easy these days, Getting off lightly, I think.
You're basically the person that went, the monsters under your bed are real.
Well, yes, the kids these days, they aren't scared of anything, so that's what we are. We're coming in here and you go back to the original fairy tales and they were all terrifying as anything. If anything, we're just un-Disneyfying it all.
Yeah, fair enough. So in that case, that was a little taster of what's about to come.
Goodness
Let's take it back. A musical comedy.
Oh, yes.
For Mr. Eddy MacKenzie. First of all, very Scottish name.
Well.
As far as I know Scottish names. But then you're not... They build you as a Glaswegian comedian, but I'm but I'm detecting a bit of an accent there, sir.
Well, one of my usual opening jokes when I come on stage is that I tell people I'm from the East End of Glasgow and they can figure it out from my accent, and people always go, oh, ridiculous, because I don't sound Glaswegian in the slightest. I always say that I talk Glaswegian because I've got the pattern, the lingo and the words, but I don't sound Glaswegian. So I'll say swatch and geese and ewes and wains and all that kind of stuff, and people go,
what's he supposed to be talking about?
What is this mutant man? And I'll say empty and gaff and all these kind of things. People are like... So I have the dialect or the language maybe, but not the accent, because not born and bred in Glasgow, but a very proud Glaswegian. I think I call myself a Glaswegian because I've been here 12 years now.
Okay. That's not, I've been here 10, so no pressure.
There you go.
It's not a competition, but you win. So where are you from?
Well... This is here we go, origin story. So, originally, 1991, Eddy MacKenzie comes along, born Edward MacKenzie in London, down south. So that's where all the extended vowels and the accent come from. That's where all the South London, south of the river, all right, governor, all that kind of stuff. That's what makes people think, he's English, very good. Age 10.
Not many people say English very good. Okay.
Maybe not.
Nowadays, even the English say English very good.
Well, I always say that I was born there against my will. You know, it was not my choice. But that always gets a laugh up here. Although down in London they don't like that.
Yeah.
But so born in London, South London, lived in an area called Southfields, which is basically Wimbledon. We all know Wimbledon. And my friends always say that I'm a womble, which is an up-to-date reference. So yeah,
Wimbling along.
Wombling way. Moved to Inverness age 10, and then did most of my growing up in Inverness, I would say. Met all the kind of friends that I still have. I still keep in touch with some London friends, but you are so young, you've changed so much that whereas I think the friends in Inverness, I'm like, oh yes, lovely boys and girls and everyone up there. And then when did I move to Glasgow? It was about 10 years after that. So I did 10 in London, 10 in Inverness. About 2011 moved to Glasgow.
Okay, so
there
13
we go.
years now.
Oh God.
Oh.
I forget how old I am sometimes. Christ.
Right, okay.
And so there you go. So the accent always confuses people. No one ever knows who I am or where I'm from. But I quite like it. I like to
I get
bamboozle people, I get on stage and they're immediately like...
I get accused of being Irish a lot, so...
Oh,
people are like,
interesting.
And I've been accused of Swedish, Dutch, everything. Every now and again someone's like, there's a hint of Eastern European, but quite often some people will be like, oh, actually I don't know. And then sometimes I like to fuck about with people. I just be like, no worries, pal, like just lean into it a wee bit, like see what happens,
Oh yes.
Right, okay, well the other thing I wanted to ask was musical comedy.
Ooh.
How did that come about? Because musical comedy, first of all, I was talking about this and thinking about this yesterday, trying to prep for this wee podcast, and I realised that musical comedy is quite interesting because the comedy world can be quite purist sometimes. They're like, we want our stand-up, you like our stand-up. But then what you're doing is, it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, there's always the music, so that means that even if it's quiet, there's got to be the music. But on the other hand, you're trying to tell jokes on beat. And that is, I'm just doing basic stand-up, and that can still be a mindfuck sometimes. Never mind rhythm. Or, so... Why? How? What?
The stigma thing is definitely real. I've had many people accuse me of they call the guitar a cheat stick. That's a big sort of cliche in comedy, is that real comics, quote unquote, will see a guy playing guitar and be like, oh, he's cheating, it's easy to get a laugh when you're playing guitar. But it's a different thing. I generally always get like a wee round of applause at the end of a song. But that's just because people are conditioned to be like, oh, he's finished a song, very good. I don't necessarily get laughs just because I'm playing guitar. No. The laughs come from being a funny bugger and doing my job. So, exactly. People that are like, and it's always the older comedians. There's always the kind of old guard, the older fellas who are like, it's easy enough when you're playing guitar. Anybody can make entertainment when you're playing a guitar. Everyone loves a wee sing song, and I really like a wee sing song, but like the jokes. That, like you say, you've got to weave them in amongst it, and
not only that, but like I was just kind of giggling to myself as you said that, because it's funny that the people that accuse them not having a real job, us comedians, will be like, well, but you're not even doing the thing we're doing, really,
There's a lot of...
It's almost like you're too weird for the theatre kids, Eddie.
There's this puritanical-ness to it, I think. And unless you're, up there, just you and a mic saying, jokes, some people do. They do look down on you. As I say, it's more of the older acts, generally. People our age... never have any problem with
Yeah,
it.
now it's been established as well. Like you got Bo Burnham, and obviously,
Well, exactly.
we've got Bill Bailey.
All these guys, but I mean, I all these fellas that are like, oh, you know, I take all my influence from Billy Connolly. He started off as a musical comedian. He got his start by playing in bands and telling wee jokes in between the songs. So, if anything, I'm more authentic than you boys. I can't play the banjo, but you know, I'm halfway there.
Oh, that's going to sell some people.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. I'm calling yous out. Billy Connolly was probably more famous for all his wee tunes, you know, the Welly Boot songs and all that stuff. And his jokes, of course, his stand-up is unparalleled. But he's also a beloved musical comedian. Come at me, bro. There you go. This is really going to annoy the right people.
I love it, because if you say anything about... people are very passionate about Billy Connolly. I've noticed, like, they're... Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Like he's the boy. He's the boy. He's become a bit of a, like, he's a cultural phenomenon, and he is, don't get me wrong, but it's the passion, and like it's getting up there with football now, I'm not gonna lie. Like I put out a clip where I just asked the question that Kevin Bridges did, something that no one else has done so far, which is release a special in cinemas.
Ooh.
And does that mean he's dethroning Billy Connolly? And oh my God, I was just asking a question, folks. I wasn't even like, I was genuinely, and I presented the argument, but people were like, how dare you?
Oh, yeah.
And poor Kevin Bridges caught some strays because they were like, not even in the same ballpark. I was like, ooh. Take a step back.
My goodness. it's exactly that. You can't come for Billy. People get very defensive about Mr. Connolly. Ooh,
he is the big one after all. But
He's a wonderful fella.
And but how do you get, like, where does the thought come of, like, I'm gonna do the musical comedy one?
Well, so we've got to go back like 10 years or beyond that. So music was the first thing. So I was a very good boy. I'd moved to Scotland like during the October holidays of primary 6. So I was like so out of place. I knew nobody, I had no friends, I was a very quiet, well-behaved, studious young man.
The quiet part's a bit...
And it's all changed now, I don't know what, you know, I got over that. But I had like one pal, bless him, and like we were very quiet, and we, you know, I was in the chess club and stuff like that. I was a very good boy, my mother was proud.
You should see Eddie now, he's going to prisons, he's hookers and cocaine, that's what Eddie's fucking speed now.
It's outrageous, I tell you. I mean, I'm still not, you know, a nice boy, but I'm basically what happened was my father made the drastic mistake of taking me to see School of Rock in the cinemas when it came out. 2001? No, 2002. Whenever it came out, School of Rock.
Yeah.
I was like... Oh no, I think it was 2003 because I was into high school a few years and I was playing the tuba. So I was already musical. I was playing the tuba in school.
Oh, that
and I was,
sexy instrument, the tuba.
Boom, 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 the classic knee trembler that is the tuba. And then because my parents, bless them, are not very culturally... Like they don't like in the house it's either Radio 4 or Classic FM, you know. My mum listens to like Bruce Springsteen and Robbie Williams, and I like, you know, that's a big part of my influence there. I love a bit of Robbie and Bruce, but apart from that, they're not very musical. You know, we don't really watch films, etc., etc. So growing up culturally, I didn't really have a lot of experience with pop culture. And then my dad took me to see School of Rock, and I was suddenly exposed to this world that I had never imagined, you know. Like, I was aware of rock music as a concept.
Yeah.
But outside of, like, you know, the most famous things, I'd heard none of this. I didn't know what punk was. I didn't know what metal was. And then suddenly, I watched School of Rock,
Look
and I
at
go,
you now.
that's it. I can absolutely pinpoint that turning point. I would have been a totally different boy if I hadn't seen School of Rock at that formative age. And so that led to everything. That led to music. That led to discovering. Well, obviously, I fell in love with Jack Black, and he's become an enormous influence on everything I do. And I found Tenacious D, and so that's where I was like, oh, music can be funny. I was already aware of like Weird Al Yankovic and funny song like Monty Python. Bless him, my dad taught me Monty Python. I'll give him that.
The only song I have in my head, obviously, from Tenacious D is one of them is the Tribute, which is a classic.
Oh, yeah.
The other one is the Gently.
A very good, lovely love song.
That's a romantic ballad, that one.
But when Tribute was really the thing, because that was like School of Rock came out, and then I think Tenacious D had their first album, and that song was everywhere. Like somehow it got to a tiny town in the Highlands of Scotland. Everyone knew Tribute, and when I discovered that I could sing Tribute and do all the high notes and all that stuff, I was suddenly not the coolest kid in school. Like, I was still a complete weirdo, but I got, kids were like, oh.
Suddenly,
hello.
Eddy MacKenzie became a lady killer.
And, well, I wouldn't go that far. I was I was still abominably shy and awkward. But, at parties and stuff, I was suddenly like, hey, it's the funny Jack Black kid, and I had a purpose suddenly. I had, a character to embody.
Yeah, the party trick.
Yeah, and even all the Neds and everyone was like, oh, he's pure funny, man. He's like Jack Black, man. And so, I suddenly got all this confidence, I sort of learned how to deal with the bullies by turning it on its back.
Do we know if Jack Black has been made aware of the existence of his long lost boy?
The day that I meet that man, because I will, I'm putting it out there, I'm manifesting it. When I meet him, it's going to be,
oh my god,
unbelievable. I'm going to break down. I don't know what's going to happen.
The singularity will be
the energy coming together.
My god.
Whoa. Because
somebody tell Jack Black. He must know about his long lost boy.
He must retrieve me.
Does he not owe you some child support at this point or something?
He owes a lot of something, I don't know. But that's it. I was suddenly I got a guitar for Christmas that year. I was suddenly so into rock and roll, and then I started writing my own stuff, awful stuff that will never see the light of day. And then years later, I started writing more, and then basically the musical comedy stuff was some friends of mine. One of them, his family had a holiday house out in the countryside, in a tiny village in Scotland, and they would rent it out as an Airbnb, but we could go sometimes. So every so often we would go for a week at a time in the summer holidays, and we would wake up, we would start drinking, we would watch all of the Monty Python films, or all of Black Books, or all of Spaced, or all of something, and we would wake up, drink all day, watch a bunch of box sets at this time. That's how old I am. We had to watch DVD box sets, because Netflix wasn't a thing. And then it would get to dinner time, we'd have dinner, we'd keep drinking, and it would be evening, and we would go to the living room, and we'd have a guitar and a piano, and we would just improvise these most of them terrible songs. And then that's kind of where it developed, and I was like, this is funny, this is fun,
that sounds like a great time.
Some of them I still play, actually. I developed them a bit. The dinosaur song that I do, that was written about 10 years ago.
That was written completely shit-faced.
That was
in a cottage.
That one was a little later on. We kind of took those ideas and we were like, let's do this some more. So that one was sober, but it was like an improv free form. So my friend was like, record, and I started playing these chords, and I just sang whatever came to mind, and it became my Dino Friend song. And so, yeah, it all sort of happened naturally. Like, music was first, and then I enjoyed making people laugh. And so I was like, let's combine the two of them. So I had all these songs that I'd written, and I kind of kept writing them. And then I came to Glasgow, lived in Glasgow for a while. I was doing the acting stuff, and I was in bands, and that was all creatively good. And then I got to know some people. I met Richard Brown. We were talking about Richie earlier on. I met Richie at work. He was a comedian, and I was going to see his gigs and stuff. And then I met other comedians, and I was like, man, I'd love to do this. How do I do it? I'm a guy with a guitar, and I didn't see anyone doing musical comedy, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll maybe need to do like open mics or something. And so I didn't do it for a while, and then I went to like a day festival, like a music festival in the Flying Duck, organised by Moonstruck on Clydeside was the name of the promoter. Very cool people. And I saw for the first time Amelia Bayler.
Oh my God, that's
Amelia Bayler.
Shout out Amelia.
And this is, I don't think I've ever spoken about this before. She was a direct inspiration on me getting into it, because I was like, I want to do comedy, I have these songs, I don't know how to do it, I couldn't see a way in. My friends were, just do open mics, and I'm like, no, I don't, nobody does this. And I saw Amelia doing her music to a room full of people decking themselves, and I went, oh, I can do it, okay.
Yes.
Cool. And so that was like, what was that? That would have been like the sort of just before summertime, 2019, I think.
Oh my God, okay.
So this was how kind of, that's when I first started.
You're baby in comedy, you.
Oh, man, I've only been going like a wee while. But like 2019, and my birthday is at the end of July, so I always go home to Inverness.
Can I ask? I'm 24.
Oh. I always say that I'm 20 something if the something is
no, I'm
12.
24th of July.
Oh, I see.
I'm not 24 years old. I wish.
I was wondering. I was like,
no.
Silas, please.
No, I'm 24th of July.
Oh, 30th of July.
Where?
Leo's, baby.
Yeah, roar.
It's
I mean, look at that.
I don't go into the what do you call it? The star signs and astrology all that much, but I'm a very proud Leo. I will take that to the bank. But basically, so yeah. Long story short, I suddenly was like, right, cool, okay. I want to do this. Where can I do this that would be like safe from observation? And I was going home to Inverness, and I knew a friend of mine ran an open mic and was doing comedy nights, and I was like, I'm going to be home for 2 weeks, have you got a show on? And he went, yeah, we're doing an open mic in like a room above a tapas restaurant. Like, this is how...
How does he do? Oh, hang on, is that the Bothy?
Yeah, well, so it was what the comedy Buffy started as, above La Tortilla Assassina in Inverness.
Kieran.
It was Kieran, and it was Halde back in the day. The originators, and now it's a few other people run it as well.
I actually gigged with Kieran.
Wonderful people. And I basically was like, I've never done this before in front of people, but I've got these songs, I'd love to try. And he went, great, come on down.
Let's do it.
And so I turn up, and he goes, we're going to have you close the show because you're musical. And I was like, okay, cool. So technically...
You headline your first ever gig is what you're saying.
But what is weird is, I went to college in Inverness.
No, headline, closed, I'm sorry.
I headlined, but I was just last on, but I'll call it headlining. But I actually had played my first comedy gig almost, not quite 10 years, but So I went to college in Inverness, and we did the acting stuff. And as part of it, one of the modules was comedy, and so our lecturer had us do live comedy. Like, this was part of the college course. We had to write a 5-minute stand-up set and go and perform it. So in like that would have been 2010 or 11, I did 5 minutes of absolute crap in the same venue that almost 10 years later I actually did my debut. And so it's all weird, spooky stuff going on, man.
The universe conspires, man.
It's hallowed ground. And then suddenly, so I did my stuff. People were like, yeah. And then the guy comes up and he's like, well, you know, you weren't shit, so we'll get you back. And I was like, oh my God.
That's always what you want to... Well, you weren't complete rubbish.
And I have been chasing that high ever since. Because being told that you weren't shit is... Oh my God, it's like the Palladium. It's like an Oscar for open mic comedians. To be like, oh my God, they didn't hate it. Ah! And so I came back to Glasgow a few weeks later and was like, right, okay, let's do this. And I played Jesters up along the road here. I did basically every open mic I could find.
So this was in 2019?
This was 2019, and so by the time the Glasgow Comedy Fest was coming along, I was very excited. I had a bunch of shows lined up, and March 2020 was looking good for Eddy MacKenzie.
Eddy MacKenzie was about to hit the stratosphere in March 2020. But then,
and then we know what happened.
But then a little virus with a lot of... with a little plucky virus came along.
A little moment of pause for all of humanity. But I don't want to say it was good, but it was good for me because I started off... Because I was still like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. So I was like a character when I first started. So I was performing as like... a character called Roly King, and he was meant to be like a sort of lounge singer, and I thought, this will separate me from it, and I can do stuff, and if people don't like it, it's not me, it's the character, etc. And then COVID happened, and we were all locked up, and I was like,
life too short.
Yeah, why the hell am I doing that? I want to write about things that are personal to me, and if I'm doing it as a character, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So in 2021, I started gigging again as Eddy MacKenzie. So technically, that's when it all really started, was like 21. Although technically it's been 2019, although technically my first ever gig was 2011. So the Wikipedia page is going to be a mess. The autobiography is going to have lots of choose your own adventure back and forth nonsense going on.
You got to be on the classic, confirm yet true or false Wikipedia claims.
Any trivia, no one's going to know anything. No, it's going to be pub quiz questions about he started then. No, he didn't. Oh God, oh. The bane of the
Imagine
land.
Decades down the line, there's going to be debates in the forums of like, well, actually, if you consider his 2011 gig to be his first,
some random bloke is going to be like, I was actually there at his first gig in Inverness. It was crap. And I'm like, it was. I don't even know. I talked about like zombies and something. I probably have it written down somewhere. I should find it.
Was this stand-up? We were already like...
So this was back the first one, which was just jokes, and it was just standing up talking about... I think I had something about zombies, and I had something about like biscuits. I think it was as much. It was everything you can imagine Eddy MacKenzie would joke about. But there you go. That's kind of the long story, not so short, of how the musical comedy stuff came about.
Nice. And I mean, you've done. I just saw Little and Large with Liam Farrell. You're like,
goddamn, that was a cool time.
Yeah, you're at this point you're becoming established. You're a presence on the scene, sir.
That was beautiful. Like and that was entirely just Liam not wanting to do a solo show, and he's like, oh man, I can't be bothered, I want to do new stuff, I'll get someone to do it with me. And we did I went and did a roast battle at Monkey Barrel, and he was on the bill as well. And apparently he was talking to, Gareth Waugh.
Yeah.
Warg? Wonderful Scottish name.
Waugh.
He was talking to Gareth W.
You made him sound very French.
Waugh. Gareth Waugh. He was talking,
Sorry, Gareth. We're big fans. Please, but
Gareth W. Yes. Gareth who? Gareth Waugh. He was talking to him, and he was like, "I want to do a split bill with somebody. I don't know who to do it with." And Gareth was like, "What about Eddie?" He's like, "Polar opposites, man. You could do like a total split show." And then Liam comes up to me and he's like, "Eddie, what you doing at the Fringe this year?" And I'm like, "Oh, I've got no plans." And he went, "Do you want to do a split bill with me at the stand?" And I went, "Ah!" And then that happened, and that was a very fun Fringe last year, I've got to say. And it was just one of these ridiculous moments that seems to keep happening, where somebody just like, "Oh yeah, Eddie, boom, let's have a go," and I just get an opportunity, and I always say that I like stumble into the next thing.
Yeah,
there's no plan.
I mean, your energy is very contagious. Let's be honest. Like, you have one of these.
Woof. I don't know. I never. It takes a lot for me to say no.
It's ironic, but you come across as like you have that momentum of the meteorite that took out the dinosaurs. You get me? Like, just you're here to make a splash.
I don't know. I'm always just amazed that I'm getting away with it, that I'm allowed to do this, and that people want to do it with me. And so whenever anyone asks, "Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this?" I'm always like, "Yes!" And I'm having to be like a bit more pragmatic and sometimes be like, "No," because there are some things that you don't want to do.
Yes.
But pretty much, just say yes, just do the thing, and then opportunities happen.
Eddie, would you like to sing a song about dinosaurs in front of 500 Jehovah's Witnesses? You're like, okay, no disrespect, but maybe I'll give a pass on that one.
They might not understand.
You're going to be a test of faith.
Maybe they'll be into the. I was going to say maybe they'll be into the scientific part, but there's not really their vibe.
Right. I mean, and the whole stepping into things and things coming along, and obviously you're there to make the most of them. Let's not take credit away where it's due. You have turned up, but like again, Mrs. Brown's Boys. I was watching the clip this morning, and it's hilarious because I mean, there's a joke he makes in there where he goes, "Oh well, if you just tune in, welcome to the Eddy MacKenzie show," because you stand up in the middle of the audience. And you're already like making them, like cheer when they need to cheer and things like that. Like you're owning it.
It was an incredible experience. And again, it's an example of just going with the moment, because basically I'd seen a thing online and they were looking for extras for a sketch. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I was like, I don't know, Mrs. Brown, oh my God." And my partner at the time, she was like, no, go for it, you'll get on TV, what's the worst that can happen? I was like, "Oh, great, cool." So I applied for it, and then I got a phone call a few weeks later, and I was, "Oh, hello," and it was like, someone from the production staff, they were talking about the thing, they had cast all the extras, but they were interested in having me on anyway, in the show, because like at the start of the show, the format was, it's like a talk show version of Mrs. Brown.
Right.
I don't want to assume any of you have seen it, because
well, you never know.
You never know. I mean,
Mrs. Brown Boys is popular. There's a reason it's still
popular. It's very popular. Bless them. And it did me no harm. So I'm thankful for Mrs. Brown. But basically, the concept is at the start, lovely Mrs. Brown talks to some of the audience, and there'll be a mixture of.
They're kind of doing their own warm-up that way, because it's like you get the audience on board, and then, right, let's watch the episode.
This is the idea. So it was usually a mix. She'll talk to like 3 people, and there'll be like somebody who's done something good for charity, somebody who's doing something exciting,
and someone who's done
a complete grifter who just wants to be on telly. And so I was the one they found, and we were talking about it, and they were like, so we see on your CV you're an actor, you've done a bunch of stuff, musician, you know. And originally they were going to have me do like a Shakespeare monologue, because they were like, oh, you've done acting, you've done all that. And then he phoned me up a few days later and was like, no, scrap the Shakespeare, the production staff don't like it, would you play harmonica for us? And I had listed on my CV, I play harmonica, and I do play harmonica. I hadn't played harmonica for maybe a year at that point. And I went, oh, of course, yes. And so I
that old chestnut, very
quickly, it was very Joey Tribbiani being like, I'm a fully trained dancer, just put it on a CV. And I very quickly relearned harmonica, and so I went on, and they were like, originally, I was only going to be in the introduction, so they were like, you can play some songs, and the concept was do 2 songs and just keep it going. Just don't let her stop. And she'll tell you to stop, just keep going. We want you to drive Mrs. Brown mad. And yeah, I was a nonsense boy, and I was loving it, and I was riling up the crowd, and she was like, stop it, don't encourage him. And I'm like, wee! And it got a little out of hand. And then I ended up appearing again later on, because there was a bit where she gave out some like trifles that the chef had done. Yeah. And she was like, oh, I'll give it to some of the audience, and I'm going to give it to the harmonica boy, because maybe it'll shut him up. I was like, wee!
And you're like, I'm on telly.
Yes.
Got free food.
So telly twice at that point, and then they come up to me at the break and they go, we've had an idea. We'd love to have you in the end scene where they basically all go to like the pub set.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, what a lovely show it's been. And then they normally have like a musical act come on. So they had, it was Clean Bandit. Clean Bandit were playing. So Clean Bandit played. And then Mrs. Brown's, was that at the end? Basically, there was a point where she comes in and she's talking about the show and goes, oh, at least it's all peace and quiet now. And then I jump up and start playing 500 Miles on the harmonica, and the whole crowd's like, and she's like, oh, for God's sake. And so it ended up being you might be on telly playing harmonica talking to Mrs. Brown's, to being throughout the show.
You were a recurring character.
And causing absolute chaos. And it has that beautiful soundbite you said where it's, welcome to the Eddy MacKenzie show. And you couldn't pay for that kind of like content.
No. I mean, that you can use
beautiful
that.
Beautiful soundbite. And so what happened was basically I did that. People loved it. Like I people still talk to me about that like this. I had a friend's wedding years later, and I was the best man, and I'd just done a beautiful speech, not to blow my own trumpet. It was amazing, and it was a wonderful ceremony, beautiful day, and all anyone wanted to talk to me about was Mrs. Brown's boys. Like, his father-in-law comes up and goes, hey, I've seen you on the telly, are you still doing that? I'm like, oh my God. You know, and I'm like, he just got married, can we please? And they were like, the Brown's boys,
the brides get upstaged by you and Mrs. Brown's boys.
And it was like, oh,
like, the priest is like, before we start the ceremony, I just want to ask a question, Eddie.
Well, I'm a big fan. What was Mrs. Brown like? So that was all very exciting, and that then led to the other. The other TV madness,
which is, again, you're like an agent of chaos, man. Like, you really are.
What happened was I kept in touch with that same production guy, and every so often he would get in touch and be like, I'm working here, I'm working at this show, do you want to come and audition? And so there was like a wrestling thing that was going to happen. That didn't happen. And then there was going to be...
God. You're about to beat them all, aren't you?
Well, there were all these concepts he kept throwing at me, and they either didn't get produced or I didn't get cast in them, various things. There was one where it was like, it was going to be like Olympic athletes or like professional athletes competing against normal members of the public doing like silly tasks, and it was all set and I was meant to be doing it, and then they pulled the filming at the last minute and they were like, well, we've already booked your flights to London. Do you want to come to London anyway? So I had a lovely weekend in London on the expense of this production company. And eventually he gets in touch and he says, I'm working at this company and we've got a new show that's just been commissioned called I Literally Just Told You. It's going to be presented by Jimmy Carr. It's on Channel 4. Do you want to audition? And I took about 2.5 seconds to go, yes. And so we went through all the processes and they showed me the concept and we did some rounds and they were like, we'll be in touch. And then they wanted me on.
Lo and behold, they were in touch.
It all started ramping up. And then I did the show, and it was just insane. It was the coolest experience. And I don't know if people have seen the show, but there was a kind of big twist to it. There was all sorts of drama, and I ended up, not winning, but then by default getting prize money anyway.
But hang on. So first of all, I have to say this because you had one of my favorite answers when they asked who was selling eggs out of a carton or off their bicycle.
Oh,
when CEO started selling eggs off their bicycle or something like that. And it's like there's Starbucks, there's Pret a Manger, and Greg's. And you went Greg's. They're like, really? You're like, well, it's in the name. Just such a silly Eddy MacKenzie answer. It's in the name.
What's in the name? And then there was a pause, and Jimmy looks at the screen, and then the audience just goes, bah! And it was just this beautiful timing of, well, it's in the name. And that was a throwaway because I knew it was Greg's because I know Greg's history, of course,
right.
And I knew that they'd started as that because I love a Greg's. And then I was just like, basically I went on that show knowing I wasn't going to win, and I was just desperately trying to make a good impression. And so at that point,
have as much fun as you can.
I'd sort of relaxed a bit by that point, and I was just like, well, it's in the name, as a complete just throwaway thing. And it turned out just a great moment. And there was so much of that, I think.
I mean, we can spoil it now because obviously it's been a few years.
Yeah. So the concept of the show, the important thing you need to know is that I literally just told you all the answers have been in the show. So all the questions...
So hang on, so were the answers... I'm curious about this.
Yeah.
Was it right before you get asked questions, you have a conversation, or you have to remember everything that's been said?
Everything. So anything, when the cameras are rolling, so anything that's on camera could be a question. It could be a conversation that had happened. It could be a visual thing in the crowd. It could be anything that has happened. So we started off and there was an introduction bit where they were like, this is Eddy MacKenzie, he works in Sainsbury's and he plays in a band, he's from Glasgow. And it went all the way down and Jimmy was like, those are the contestants and we're playing I Literally Just Told You and we've already started. Eddy, where was such and such from? And you had to be like, what? And that was it. Immediately we were into it, and you had to have remembered all the information. And I didn't do well because I was like, oh, absolutely panicking. But it was like that, and then hours later they might reference a question that had happened rounds before and be like, what answer did such and such give about this? And you'd have to be like, what? Madness. And so basically the concept...
so it's not as easy because on the surface it sounds easy, but once you actually break it down, it's oh.
And when you got further and further into it, the questions could get more and more outlandish because it could be about anything. So that was the whole concept. So basically they had to have given you the answers on camera in order to answer the questions. So we get to the final, and I'm in the final somehow. Surprisingly, I made a complete comeback. It was ridiculous. And they ask a question, how old is Ariana Grande? And there had been a round, so like the Greg's thing, each round was you had a choice of 3, so they were like, we've given you the answer, it's one of these answers, so like Greg's, Pret a Manger, Starbucks. Another one of my rounds was Lizzo, Ariana Grande, Jennifer Lopez, I think.
Oh, hang on, because I watched that today.
It maybe wasn't J-Lo, it was somebody else.
No, it wasn't J-Lo, it wasn't Taylor Swift, hang on, who was it?
I know it was Lizzo, Ariana Grande.
There was somebody, oh god. Was it
Not Shakira, was it?
No.
It was somebody like J-Lo.
Oh, it's going to annoy me now because I literally watched it today. Now we're just playing the game, aren't we?
Oh, and this is it. And basically, they'd asked who's the oldest. And so the final, basically, you choose some questions that have been written by production staff under the observation of lawyers and like analysts. So these questions were meant to be like watertight. This was meant to be no messing around. And they asked me, the question was, how old is Ariana Grande? But we had never discussed it.
You said 26.
So I said 26. Turns out she was 27. But
she's not 28?
She's 28 now. But
okay.
This was at the time of filming, she was 26. She was 27. But the problem was they hadn't mentioned the age.
So I want to know this. So you go away thinking, oh fuck.
The other guy wins, I go away, Jimmy gives me a handshake, says, well done, we've had a lot of fun, it was beautiful. I go away.
This is what I want to know. You're minding your own business.
I go back to work at 6 a.m. the next morning. Like, I thought nothing of it. I thought, great, cool, that'll be fun when it comes on telly. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call from the production guys, and they say, we just wanted to get in touch, we're putting the show together, the edit's looking great. Jimmy wanted us to reach out and say he had a wonderful time working with you on the show, and he would like you to come down to London and be his guest at his gig in the O2. We're going to fly you down, etc., etc. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Hello. No suspicions, no.
So they're not letting you know about this.
They were just like, he wants you to come to the gig, say thank you for doing the show, he wants to see how you're getting on. I was like, that's madness, hello. So me and a friend, they fly us down. We are 2 Scotsmen on holiday as far as we're concerned. So we start drinking at the airport, like 7 a.m. we're going to get a flight, and it's like, boom, boom, boom. We get to London, we go to the hotel, we just keep drinking. We go around London, we go to all the pubs, and then it's like, let's get to the O2, okay, because we just think we're going to see Jimmy Carr,
Yeah. So you know.
So we turn up 3 sheets to the wind, go to Jimmy Carr, and then we sit in the seats that we were told, and I get a phone call, and the guy's like, are you here, Eddie? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you're not in the seats? And I'm like, yeah, we're in the seats. And he's like, oh, they must have mixed it up. You're meant to be in these seats. So they came and found us and pulled us from where we were sat in like the middle of a row, and then they moved us to like the back of the room at the back of a walkway. So there was no one in front of us. So we were just like sat there. We were like, well, I mean,
that's suspicious.
These are better seats. And my friend was like, this is a bit weird, isn't it? And I was like, oh, it's fine. And then the guy's like, oh, great, cool, don't leave, like, just sit, I'm like, okay, cool. My friend's like, something's going on. And I'm like, crazy. The show happens, Jimmy does his stuff. We're approaching the halfway point, and he's like, before we go on break, I'd like to talk about a show that I've been doing recently. It's very exciting. It's a new concept. It's going to be on Channel 4. It's called I Literally Just Told You. We've had a lot of fun filming it. In fact, there was a guy on one of the episodes who was a real fun time, and he's here tonight. And the lights suddenly went boom, and I was like, ah, and there's like cameras, and it's like, Eddie, stand up and say hello. And I was like, hello. And he's like, Eddie was on the show, he was great fun, we'd like to invite you on the stage, Eddie, come on down. So security huckle me away through the building, and while I'm coming up through the side, Jimmy's talking to the crowd and being all that, and he's like, Eddie's got no idea what's about to happen, but he's going to lose his mind. Just wait up, kids, And my friend is like, what is going on? Oh my god, because he's still sat there. I turn up to the side of the stage, There's a Steadicam operator. I go, okay, this must be promo for the show. It'll be like an ad sting or something. You know, it's going to be like a Channel 4 pop thing, and it'll be like, whoa. And then I come out and we're talking away, and a lot of it didn't make it into the show because they were trying to tighten up, but we talked for like 10 minutes. We're bantering away because me and Jimmy got on very well. It was quite surreal. Like there were so many moments in the show as well that didn't make it on where I had him buckled over his little podium, just like, oh, like laughing away. I was so proud. And so we were chatting away, we were catching up. He's like, how you doing? I'm like, I'm pissed, way. And we were chatting away. And he's like, say hello to me, O2. And I'm like, way. And we're just chatting away. And he goes, so Eddie, I got to get serious for a minute. I got to, you know, you were on the show. Great fun. Got to the final. You didn't win, of course. Chitty won. Cheze won. Cheze.
Cheze.
I'm thinking of the good place, Chitty. Cheze won. Obviously, you know, it was a shame, but we looked back at the episode, Eddie, and we realised that we never told you how old Ariana Grande was. And it gets all serious, and I'm like, what? Didn't? No, because I had no idea. I hadn't noticed. I'm a fool. I don't know how. I had no business being in that final. I had not noticed at all. And he was like, yeah, we never told you. We missed it. We didn't give you the answer, so you couldn't have answered that question. And I was like, okay, what? And I was like, and he's like, so obviously, Cheze will keep his money. He won. But when you make a mistake
in life,
you got to own up to it, Eddie. He knows all about it. being a silly sausage. And he's like, you got to face up to it. You got to face the music. So Cheze will keep his money, but you, Eddie, reaches into his shiny, shiny suit and pulls out a fake cheque for £18,000, hands it to me and goes, you're going to get the prize money as well because we messed up. And I'm suddenly stood on the O2 stage in front of 1,000 people, freaking the hell out. I've never had a panic attack, as far as I know, but that's what I'm told they feel like. And I was just like, okay, what? And there's a camera in my face, and I'm suddenly the most sober I've been in my life. Like boom, I'm suddenly in the room like, what? Freaking out, and he does the thing, and then we do the bit where he's like, Eddie, you've just been given £18,000. How do you know this? Because I literally just told you. Hey, we do the whole gimmick thing. Yeah. Wonderful thing. They huckle me off. We go backstage. They sit me down. They go, I'd fill in all the paperwork and stuff, sign the NDA, etc., etc. And Jimmy comes in and he goes, are you all right? And I'm like, ah! And then they go and get my friend. They bring him. And then for like 20 minutes, we just sit and have a beer with Jimmy Carr in the green room of the O2 Arena, and he's just chatting away. He's like, how's the comedy going? Because I told him I was trying to do the comedy at that point. He's like, how you doing? How are you doing? And I told him kind of the stuff, and I'm like, because at that point, I had met the warm-up act. So this is why opportunities lead to opportunities. The warm-up act at the filming for I Literally Just Told You was a guy called Mark Olver, who's like top of the game. Beautiful warm-up guy, very, very funny MC. And during a filming break, he comes up and he's like, so you're a comedian, you do comedy? And I'm like, I'm trying to, I do a bit of musical stuff, you know. And he's like, have you signed up for the BBC New Comedy Awards? And I was like, the what? And he's like, mate, BBC New Comedy Awards. I'm like hosting it this year. Sign up for it. You'll be great, they'll love you. And I'm like, oh my God. So because of the show, I had been involved in that, and I was saying to him, oh yeah, I've got my first heat coming up for that in Edinburgh, whatever it was. And he's like, oh great, cool. What's your like opening stuff? So I told him kind of how I would start a set, and he's like, you know, he was giving me tips, and he was like, have you tried being like a bit self-deprecating, you know, maybe open with a gag, you know, gets people on side, you know, it's a great technique of like warming an audience, like, because they know And then if you say the thing, they go, oh, he knows too, cool. And it just instantly relaxes them. And he's like, and he was giving me all these advice, and I'm just sitting there with a Smirnoff Ice like, okay, Jimmy, okay, cool, all right, that's wonderful. And my friend is sat next to him just like, just absolutely like, and then he's like,
I guess you get flown out to London, you're at the O2, you're shit-faced, you just got a check for £18,000. You get fucking a masterclass in how to do your stand-up, how to build your set.
He's just giving me tips and all that. Yeah, man, yeah, try this, try that, I'm just sat there, and my friend is sat next to him, and we're just both like, what? And it's very nice, and he's just very chill. He's a lovely guy, Jimmy Carr. You wouldn't think from his persona, but he's such a sweetheart. And he's like, right, cool, I've got to get back to it, boys. It's been lovely. I'll see you again after. Go back to the seat, enjoy your show. It's been great to see you, etc. So he goes off, we get another beer, we go back to the chairs, and we just sit and watch the rest of the show. Very funny. And then we somehow, so I missed him at the end because I went to the toilet, and then apparently he comes by and he's like, oh, nice to see you, boys. And my friend Andy was like, he's in the toilet. He's like, oh no, I've got to get the taxi. Tell him I said hi. So I missed him at the end, but he was a very nice boy. And then me and my friend had to get back to London from the O2 back to our hotel with a room full of people who had just seen this, and I was suddenly the most popular man in London, and all these geezers were coming up being like, all right mate, yeah, I own a garage, I'll get you a good deal on that way. And everyone was talking to me, and I was like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Oh my god, just imagine finding your way through the O2 arena.
And I was just freaking out. And people were like, oh, come for a drink, come out, we'll take you out. And I'm like, I can't even, I need to just be laid down at this point. And so Andy and I were like, oh, thank you, we escaped. Yeah, is the right word. Got back to where the hotel was, found a kebab, got the kebab, went to the hotel. I was like, I need a fizzy drink and a kebab, and I need to be horizontal because I am freaking out.
Wait. The reason I'm howling. In January, I went down to do gong shows in London, right? And I was doing alright. I wasn't doing great. But after every gong show, I would go and find myself a kebab place and just this is it, boy. It's comedy, baby. So there's something about
it's like a grounding kebab.
There's something
nom nom nom.
It brings you back to life, doesn't it?
It settles you. And then we went home. We went back to the hotel. We're sitting on the bed. We're watching some I don't know, Family Guy, whatever was on, some nonsense, eating the kebab. And he's like, Can I phone my wife and tell her? And I was like, okay. And so we phone her up, and she's like, oh, have you had a nice time? How was the show? And he's talking away, and he's like, oh, you'll never guess what happened. And he tells her, and she's like, what? And I'm like, oh my God, because I wasn't allowed to tell anyone. That was the point. And he was like, can I tell Ailey? And I was like, okay, you can tell Ailey. So she knew, he knew, I knew, nobody else knew for so this was September that we filmed in the O2. The episode didn't air until January.
Right.
And
because they included that clip, I think, at the end, didn't they?
And I couldn't talk about it. I had signed an NDA. I wouldn't get the money if I told people. It was all part of the contract. It's all to do with well, yeah, it basically means you can't talk about it until it's aired or you won't release the funds. So it just is that kind of thing. So
well, interesting. I wasn't aware of that.
I went for the next 4 months just working at my job and pretending
so you're keeping an £18,000 secret, knowing you're about to receive it.
And I was just working away and telling nobody. And I was people knew I was going to be on TV because obviously, I was I've done some filming, I'm going to be on a game show, wee! And but I couldn't tell anyone.
Yeah, of course.
I couldn't talk about it, and I was just working away every day oh my God. And then it got to December time, and...
Was there any customer that you were like, oh, you can't fucking talk to me like that? I wasn't...
I mean, I was just trying to keep a low profile.
Just you wait.
because I think I was like, oh, if I act different, people are going to know something's happened. But then it got to like December time, and I was like, and they told me it's coming out in January, and I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching.
And then a combination of knowing that was happening and my managers being assholes and not giving me Christmas holidays that I'd asked for. They were like, so basically, home is Inverness, which is 3.5 hours away, and they were like, well, we'll give you Christmas off, then you have to work Boxing Day, and I'm not coming back 3.5 hours to do Boxing Day to then go back again. So all this nonsense was going on, and so I walk into my manager's office and I was like, have you got a moment? And he was like, yeah. And I'm like, what is the process, not to panic you, but what is the process of handing in a notice? Because I'd never done it before. I'd always just been fired from jobs. I had never, I wasn't aware of how to leave. I'd always just, I'd left, but I was like, what's the formal, like, I want to hand in my notice, but I can't tell you why. And he was like, what? And I'm like,
but I go, this is how much you're not familiar with giving the notice. You don't have to have a good reason. I'm handing in my notice.
Well, no, because
personal reasons.
Because he was like,
it.
well, yeah, but he was like, are you going to a job? And I'm like, not working here anymore. And he's like, what? And he's like, he put a pen down. He's like, are you okay, Eddie? Like, he was concerned because I was so like stum, and I was just like, all I can say,
drugs. You've been selling the drugs.
I'm gonna be doing another thing, and I couldn't tell him anything. He's like, all right, man, cool. You can work your 4 weeks, and yeah, boom. And so I worked until the end of December, went home for Christmas, and then the show was airing in January, so I stayed until then, and then it aired, and I did like a screening at home in my friend's dad's pub, and it was wonderful. Everyone came, we watched the show. So Andy knew, I knew. We got to the final. That happened. Everyone was like, oh,
Eddie,
well done anyway, Eddie, well done. People started to applaud, and then the credits, and then they started getting up, and then it was like 3 weeks later, and everyone was like, what? And I'm like, me? And I'm sat there knowing, and people are like, what's happening? And then the end happens, and people are like, oh my God! And it's just like a freak out. My mother was like, ah!
And none of them know.
None of them knew. The only people who knew was me, Andy, and Ailey.
And the entire O2 arena.
Well, I mean, the fact that it never got aired, like, I don't know how they kept all those people quiet. That's what really confuses me, because none of them would have signed an NDA.
No, I think
they were just there.
They were just like, yeah, well, shit happened. You can be written off. It was part of the show, whatever. I actually don't know.
But then, like, overnight, it suddenly was like the story, and I was appearing on like the Telegraph, the Guardian,
really,
Business Insider, the New York Post, like every like news outlet you can imagine ran a story about this guy.
Business Insider wanted to ask questions from a musical comedian about.
Basically, they weren't interviewing, but they were just running the story. So they were all like redoing the story, and it's like I was in the Financial Times, I was in like New York Post, I was in everything, IGN, like every media outlet had a story of that incident, because it was like Jimmy Carr gives prize money to guy who didn't win, and the whole, like, if I had won, it wouldn't have been a story,
right? But
it's the fact that I failed successfully, and it became worldwide. People were like, "Oh my God!"
That could be the title of your next show. Failed successfully.
Well, I've not spoken about it live yet. I just don't know how to like address it all, and people are like, you should be joking about it, you should be doing material about it. I'm like, I don't know how, man, it's just so big.
Just tell the story.
Maybe that's it.
I have to ask the question, because this joke popped into my head and it's been killing me, but what are the chances that £18,000 was a tax write-off.
That was pretty much all the comments.
That was Jimmy.
They were all like, well, that's Jimmy clear again, you know. But it's just, because it would have been a nothing. It would have just been, if I had won, it would have just been always won. But it's the fact that I didn't win, and then there was this massive twist, and it's just such a ridiculous thing to like win by default, or like
It's like being like forfeit or something like.
Yeah, like
Well, also the fact that it happens to one of the sweetest people we know.
Bless you.
And you know, it's
The thing.
if it was some prick that happened to you, you'd be like, let's cut it.
Well, this was it. I think a lot of the comments on YouTube were like talking about that, because I get the thing, and I'm just like and they're like, what a sweet boy.
Yeah, and all the comments were like, you know, lovely, great energy. Everyone's bringing up Jack Black, which is, let's circle back to that.
Yeah.
Jack Black needs to know about Eddy MacKenzie. He does. Somebody tell him, please.
It's oh boy, it's just nuts. The whole thing is nuts, and like people still talk about it, because some people.
It's a great story.
Like some people don't know about it, and I have to be like, sit down, let me tell you. And I'm like, let me recount the tale. But oh my god, the first, what was that, 2022, the first like half of 22 after that, every single person I met was like, what the hell? Tell me about it. Like, what on earth? And
this was 22.
So it was 21 that we filmed it, and then January 22 it aired, and like, oh my god, it was all anyone wanted to talk about. I did like Red Raw the second week of January, and like everyone on the bill was like, oh my god. Like everyone was talking to me about it, and all the comedians, like people turned up to watch the show to ask me about it, and I was like, I've never been this famous in all my life, and I was suddenly everyone's best friend, and it was just so weird. I was bumping into people in the street who were like, you were on Jimmy Carr, and it was just such a surreal thing.
Yeah, I want to ask. I'm actually curious about that, because it's a fascinating thing that I do it too. But there's something that happens where it fucks with your brain a little bit, and you suddenly start looking at a person differently. And not everyone, but I've noticed it. So like, I did a little open spot for my like 3 of my favorite Romanian comedians. Well, they're like top Romanian comedians, and one of them was my fave, right? And the moment I sat down after the show with them, I could just feel myself like, it's almost like you get butterflies a bit. Like it's you, but it's also like not you. Like, oh my god, hi.
We're big starstruck.
Yeah, and then like I feel like that happens at like a social, like a society level almost. So like in your case, it happened like immediately, in the entire pub was like, what the fuck? Yeah. But like, what is that? And how does that affect you being on the receiving end of it? You came through it lovely. Like, I can confirm Eddie's this off camera as well. He's lovely.
Bless you. It was very weird. I think because so much of the run up to like it airing was like, you know, make sure your social medias are like locked or whatever, like make sure there's nothing negative, etc. Like people are going to come for you. People are going to like I had a sit down with like a media, whatever the member of the team was, like a media HR manager or whatever, and they were like giving me all this advice.
So hang on, so Jimmy's team, or like the people involved in the show,
production team, yeah,
they actually like had a word with you.
Yeah, they sent me all this stuff, and they were like, you know,
what are their tips for like something like this happening?
Well, it was basically like, you know, once this airs, people are going to find you on social medias. You know, make sure you don't. Well, first of all, it was like, if you want things to be private, make them private. You know, how to secure stuff, etc. And they were like, don't feel like you need to talk to people. Don't feel like you need to like pander to like messages and stuff. All sorts of things like that, like how to avoid getting into weird incidents online, etc.
Yeah, you don't want to end up selling a kidney in Mexico.
Exactly. Like, and basically it was like, yeah, if you have any like issues come to us, etc. Luckily, though,
That's cool of them that they're taking care of.
I mean, it was great. Like, they were like very aware and very like ahead of the thing, and they were like, just, you know, we're here for you. We're going to look after you, because it's not national TV, it's international. I had people from America and stuff finding me online, being
Literally like that.
I'm from Fort something in Colorado, and I saw the show, and I'm like, because like BBC in America and like British television in America is huge.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
there's-
they do
They
love
love it, and so all these maniacs were finding me off the American screening, and it was stuff like that. But it was all
And
positive.
yeah.
It was like, I don't think I ever saw a negative image, a negative comment or anything, which is madness. Like when you have that level of exposure, to not have any like trolling was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. But I think it's just
But everyone was just like, he's a nice guy. Fair enough.
the story is a great story. You're the plucky underdog throughout. You're
No
a
one-
lovable person. And I think, I mean, there's obviously the element of luck, because sometimes, you know, one troll, it just takes them to wake up at the right moment and fucking catch on to it. But still, that is fascinating.
It all comes down to somebody on the team messed up, and that question got put in. But then we had a choice as well. We flipped for it. So to choose who was asking what set of questions. So maybe I would have been asking that question. You know, so many things had to happen
My God.
for it to, and it is luck. It's all chance. It's all, and you chose what questions from the pack to ask as well. So he might not even have asked that question, and it's like so improbable for it all to have happened, and yet
Well,
it did.
life is a sequence of improbability. So
And
here we are.
I mean, this is why my whole ethos is just like, none of it makes sense. Just say yes to things, do the nonsense that comes along, and just opportunities appear, because it's a weird world, and you never know who's going to ask you to do something cool. So
Yeah.
just be open to it. And
My God.
I think that's all it is.
Yeah, it's a hell of a story, and it just I watched the clip and I was like, oh my God.
Insane. Oh,
Right. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, that it just feels right for the soul. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy on
well,
the
I think,
inside.
I think that's why people were so into it, because it was like, here's this weird little guy who's just having fun, and he's being a silly sausage on the telly, and people were like, oh, he didn't win, oh, that's fine. Oh my God! And it's this complete underdog thing, because like I say, I went from like last in the first round to somehow scrambling it back, and all these things. It is like, yeah, underdog.
And it's
like
very relatable, as I think in life, you know, we all get battered over the head with the messaging of number one and winning and succeeding, But then realistically, you realize that like success is not number one. Number one happens, and you know, you work your ass off, and great when it does, fantastic. But if you actually look at the positives and you mine everything for as much as you can, there's a lot of success in all the other spots, you know. And most of us are familiar with losing and losing and losing, but then you get a win, and then sometimes that win turns out to be not as big as you thought, but it's still a win, and you still build on it. And you know, sometimes great things happen, a lot of like fascinating, quirky, different things happen, and you can just kind of like, we all relate to that.
Yeah.
Shit happens, but it turned out okay. So yeah, fucking well done.
Madness.
Well done.
Thank you.
I do have to ask, I mean, that kind of rolls into so you've done two competitions that I know about, BBC New Comedy Awards, where you got into the Scottish finals,
Oh yes.
to put it that way. So semi-finals, but like the Scottish, like the regional finals.
heats. Yes.
And then you also did the musical comedy.
Yes, musical comedy awards. Yes.
Yeah. And then, what was the description? It was quite funny. I'm trying to think, because I read your description on the article, and the first one was like Glaswegian Eddy MacKenzie, and I was like, ha ha ha.
Oh yeah.
But no, what was like doing competitions like, especially with your genre of comedy?
Well, yes. So yeah, the BBC New Comedy, as I say, happened I met Mark, applied for it, and then that all filmed and aired in 2021. So before the Jimmy Carr stuff had happened. So I turned up and I was still very... So like I said, when I came back to gigging in 21, the Edinburgh heat of the New Comedy Awards was my first gig back.
Jesus
Like,
Christ. My God, Eddie. Like,
so
who does that to themselves?
we had been locked in the house for COVID. I'd done a few like videos and things. And,
Zoom gigs?
well, I didn't do any Zoom gigs.
thank
Anyway.
fuck.
I was like, no. But like, so like the Stand Red Raw would do videos sometimes. So I had a few songs on there. So I'd kept busy and I'd done some stuff. I really got into TikTok. That was good fun. And then my first live gig back was the BBC New Comedy Awards Edinburgh quarter-final.
Jesus
and
Christ, man.
I had to come out dry. I hadn't done it in a year, and do I did the MD 2020 song, and just I thought it went pretty good. I had some friends in. I was like, yes, and then they were like, and through to the semi-finals, Liam Farrelly and Eddy MacKenzie, and I was like, what? Oh my God! So Liam, who I was very aware of as being a legend.
Yeah, he's already... I mean, hopefully we'll get him on at some point, but he's been fucking killing.
Lovely boy. And then we went to... It was Dundee, so Dundee was the Scottish semi-finals, the regional heats. And then we're just chilling, and I turn up, and it's me and Liam, and then the other acts were all from down south, so it was a very English-heavy competition, I would say. The fact there were only 2 Scottish
in the Scotland
acts
heat.
In the Scottish heat was madness. Basically, there was
no comment.
It says a lot about the Basically, what happened was they got them through, and then there were so many English contestants that they had to fit them into the Scottish one as well. Yeah. So we won't comment on the Anglo-centric nature of the comedy industry, but oh boy. So me and Liam,
I think you know what it is because it does come down to sometimes they look at it as strictly relatability, and obviously their biggest market is England out of the UK. Is the biggest country in the UK. I
mean, more people live in London than in Scotland, so obviously it's going to be like a London focus.
And they're going to look at viewers and who's going to... I'm guessing.
Yeah, that's entirely how it is, and I understand it. It's all business, but
it does lead to some silly stuff where the Scottish comedy heat.
Yeah,
has 2 Scottish comedians in it.
It does get under your skin, but that's a different political business anyway. So me and Liam were sitting there, and I'm like nervous, and then. But he's lovely, and he's chatting away. I'd never met him before, I don't think. I think this was us meeting. And he's like, so how's it going? How are gigs going? I've been watching your videos online, etc., etc. I'm like, what? You're Liam Farrelly. You're the golden boy. And he's like, yeah, man, we're both here. We're both doing the same thing. And I'm like, oh, man, this is a cool guy. And we all just start chilling. People turn up. We're having some tannocks and tea cakes and all sorts of things, and very well taken care of. Lovely. The whole production of the Comedy Awards is mental. Like, so many people involved. The amount of cameras. It's a big production. And so we do the thing, and I think there were some other musical comedians in other heats, but I was obviously the only one in my heat. So already I'm sort of set apart. And it was definitely the biggest gig I'd ever done. Like, holy moly. I don't know how many people were there, but hundreds. All packed into this, it was at the Verdant Works, which is like a museum in Dundee. Okay. Like a jute museum. So they were all packed in. It was really cool. And yeah, I come out, I'd do my bit, I'd do my song. Seems to go pretty good. People are singing along. And then obviously Liam went through to the final. Did he win? No.
I don't want to make stuff up, but I can't remember. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh no, it was I can't remember his name. Anyway, so that was great. That was the Scottish thing. But then I noticed they edited a lot of stuff, and other people have commented on this that have done the competition being like, oh, they edited out a lot of my set. So you do 5 minutes, but obviously they'll cut bits out for time, and like, so I had moments where I was saying something and then it cut to the audience laughing, and I'm like, but they're not laughing at that. What?
Yeah.
So like loads of ad-libs I had didn't make it in, stuff like that. So you do, even though it was a great like experience, you are like at the mercy of the BBC editing department, and you're like, okay, cool. But it was a great experience. You know, I met a bunch of people, and still all the team know me, which is really cool. So like, I went back and I watched the Scottish Heats last year, the year before, and then this year as well. Obviously, I went to the finals that were in Glasgow with our boy Dean.
Shout out
that
Dean
was
T-Bird.
So cool. Like, to be able to just rock up to the Kings, and then the comedy people were just like, Eddie, well, here you go, bada bing, come on in. And I'm like, I feel like a rock star, baby. But they're all so nice, and like literally people who I hadn't seen for a year were like, Eddie, wow. And I'm like, this is mad. Like, you always assume that showbiz people are so like fake and like vapid, and they don't remember the little people, but they really go out of their way to be so nice and inclusive and make you feel part of the team. Is wonderful. So yeah, I mean, it was a great experience for me.
And then obviously you got in the finals of the musical comedy.
Oh, and then yes, the musical comedy ones. That was a whole other experience, because
that was your people.
It was and it was so surreal to turn up. So there were a few heats for that one. So I turn up the first day, and I'm just like, these are all musical comedians. Oh my god! And they were all asking me, because like, I think in London there's more musical comedians, obviously,
right?
And then I was like, yeah, normally it's like me, maybe another one on a bill. Today there's 8 of us. I'm like, what? So that was cool. And like, there is something about musical comedians where we're so like, we're all in it together, you know.
Yeah.
And we're all aware of the perception, quote unquote, real comedians have, and there was no ego, there was no like presumptuousness. These were the coolest cats that I think I've ever come across. And we were so supportive and so nice and so wonderful. And so I do the first heat, I get through to the next heat, and at that heat I got bumped straight to the final, which was really cool.
Oh wow.
So you were meant to do 3 heats before the final, but on the second one, which was the semi-finals, I think, there's an opportunity for 2 people to get boosted.
Right,
so 2 people from each heat can get immediately powered through, and it was me and another Scottish act called Nicola McMurtry, and that felt really cool, that the only 2 Scottish people were like, well, bada bing, let's get out of here. I think they just felt sorry that I was getting the megabus every time. And they were like, oh god, because every time I would open them, be like, hey guys, I've been on the megabus for 12 hours overnight, it's great to be here. And so people were like pity voting me, I think. And then they were like, let's give him a break, man, he's done this twice, let's not make him get another bus. So I was like, boom, right to the final.
Oh god, that megabus spoke to my core, man.
Oh, I mean, that 12-hour overnight megabus is just,
I
it's hellish.
can't do the nights right now. I've got some sleeping issues, so if I can't sleep if there's like noise and stuff.
Oh,
so the bus,
I do my
I can
best
do the
sleeping
daytime
on public transport.
I can do the daytime bus, and I can edit and stuff, but the nighttime bus can get to fuck.
It's full of creeps and weirdos as well. Like, not going to London, but people coming from London to Glasgow. It was always full of like absolute roasters and just psychopaths, man. You're on the bus just like, oh god. I was on it once, and a guy was off his head on I don't know what, and he was trying to fight everyone.
And they start arguing of like the seats and shit. Excuse me.
And they dumped him in like Cambridge or somewhere. Like, we only got about 2 hours up the road, and they dumped him at a service station because he just kept trying to fight everyone. And the driver was like, bye-bye. So, mental.
Yeah, no, I mean, the nighttime bus always has a fucking reputation, but the national nighttime bus, it's like...
It's just mutant city. Insane. I don't know who these people are and why they're all trying to go to Glasgow. Nuts. So anyway,
what we're trying to say is, please come see our show.
Please,
buy a ticket.
So I think that really helped. Because I went back this year and I did the musical comedy awards again, and I didn't get the bus, and so I didn't have the sob story, and I didn't get through to the next round. But I wasn't too fussed because I already did the finals last year,
yeah.
which were again amazing. It was in the Bloomsbury Theatre.
That sounds. I think so. That's why that's what I saw in the article. I would say Bloomsbury. Yeah.
So it's part of like the London City University. I think it's whatever is it. I think it was the Bloomsbury Theatre. Yeah, which is like 900 capacity or something.
Well, okay.
Madness. But again, we were so well taken care of. We had like, well, I had my own dressing room to begin with, and then Rachel Paris turned up and needed it. So,
you got. The actual stars.
So bless her, she was so lovely about it. But I turn up and I'm like, and they were like, oh. Well, we've got this dressing room actually. You could be in there, Eddie. So I'm in there for 2 minutes, getting the coat hung up, and then they come back and go, actually, we've realised that Rachel actually needs a dressing room. And I was like, okay, cool. So I ended up going in. But that was cool.
Into the lobby I go.
But then I was with some friends, which was nice. Because we all just really got on. And we were like a little team. By the time we got to the final, we'd been together like 3 times. And we were like, yeah, unit. And so I was on second, which was really good. So I got up there, did my thing, 1,000 people, bada bing, boom, done. I went up to the green room where we had the screen up to watch, and I proceeded to drink the fridge. They had like full of beer, wine, snacks, and I just sat there for the rest of the show on the sofa, and people were coming in and going out, and like, oh, I'm about to go on, and they were so nervous, and then they'd come back and be like, oh, I'm done, thank God. Then gradually the place filled around me, and I was just sat there, beer.
I mean, yeah, there's something, if you don't want to be the first one up, but third maybe, second, third.
Yeah.
You got it out of the way, your emotions are gone.
And I just chilled, and because I was kind of like, whenever I go to London, I feel my most Scottish. You know, whenever I go to the...
I mean, so do I. I'm not even Scottish, but like the moment I go there...
You go south of the border, you go, right, come on! and you sort of feel duty-bound to be the most Scottish guy. So I was sitting there tanning all the San Miguels, like, yes, man! And they were like, everyone was coming in being like, you're like a mad wee Scottish uncle, Eddie. And I'm like, yes! And I was just like, sitting there going, well done, that was great, yeah! You know, getting more and more pished and Scottish as the day went on, and it was lovely. Everyone was a delight. At one point, Rachel Paris, the dressing room stealer, comes in, and she's just chatting away to us. She's talking away, and we're like, you're Rachel Paris, Jesus Christ, and just amazing. The whole
she needs to put that on a poster. Dressing room stealer Rachel Paris.
I mean, bless her, you know.
She's doing not too bad for herself.
I don't need a lot of space. I was just like, boom, boom, boom. But it was so cool, and like, when, you know, you do so many dodgy gigs and weird competitions and gong shows and that kind of thing, and to be in a situation where everyone was sound, the whole thing was like butter, beautifully smooth operation. You were treated with such respect, and then it just feels so good.
Does it ever feel too much?
Always.
So I
always get that imposter syndrome, like, I shouldn't be here. What the hell is going on?
I did a gig for I can say this, it was for the Hungarian Culture Institute down south, and I turn up, and the receptionist lady's like, oh, how about you? I had to translate this because Hungarian is slightly different, but like, we don't say sir, but like, ur kind of means the gentleman. or it would be the equivalent of that, right? And I turn up, and this is me like a few years back. I'm just doing my thing, and the artist, the gentleman artist has arrived, and I'm like, what? And this is like a lady who's like in their 40s, 50s, and I'm like, don't fucking call me that, like. I'm just like, oh, thank you so much. You know, like, it was just a weird experience to be called the gentleman artist. The gentleman likes something, and it's someone who's like 20, 30 years older than me, and I'm like, this feels weird.
It is very weird. You do, and there's a kind of, I don't know, you feel almost guilty that you're being like served, like waited on, you know. You're like, oh, I can get it myself, I'm fine, you know. And they're like, oh, I'll get you, I can get my own cup of tea, thank you very much.
It's an odd thing of like, obviously the industry is famous for like, if you're a nobody, they'll treat you as a nobody, and that happens sometimes. Most of the time it doesn't, and most of the time they're lovely. But the other aspect of like being treated like a celeb, and I'm trying to understand that because it doesn't make sense, but we all do it.
Yeah,
we all suddenly decide to make this person more than they actually are.
A lot of people talk about that, like that aspect of fame where suddenly you are being treated differently, and how to deal with that, because it is a weird thing, like suddenly walking into somewhere and being the most important person there. Like, how do you?
No, you're not. We're all equally,
but like,
being treated like.
And how do you deal with that psychologically? Because it is, you either stay humble or you become a massive bellend.
Yeah,
like those are the two paths. And I think all the good people are like aware of how weird it is, and I think it's good having that awareness, because if you go, oh yes, finally I'm being treated like how I should be,
yes,
that's how, oh god no. So I'm always,
frankly, they should have started sooner.
Yeah, I'm always trying to be very aware of like my privileges and where, you know, and like not being a douche, and just like, but also it is kind of the nature of the thing, and I'm at a stage where I do turn up to places and they go, oh, what would you like to drink? We'll get you some food, we'll do that, here's your room, you know. And it's like, it's being aware that you are deserving of it, but not letting it corrupt you.
Yeah, it's like, oh, they're rewarding my work. It's not like I'm fundamentally the person that just is owed this.
Yeah.
They're rewarding the work I've done.
It's understanding that it's like, that's just how it works here. Their job is to bring you a glass of Coke, and it's like, cool, that's nice.
Yeah,
and it's just respecting that is the hierarchy of show business, I suppose.
And it's also an element of they are literally trying to protect their investment in a way of like, the less you move about and try to pick stuff up, the less likely you are to fall over it.
Well, that's basically it. It's like, keep them in the green room, give them what they want, keep them nice and safe, precious artists, you know. And
and the show will go on. We don't have to fucking get the understudy on today.
And it's understanding that just because they've brought you your dinner, you don't look like a prick. That's the business. That's how it works.
It's also an element of like us artists. Some of us, I mean, we are idiots sometimes. We'll do some of the dumbest shit for no reason. But yeah,
and it's just it's the same way that if you see someone treating like a member of wait staff or something in a certain way, or like a bar person or something, you know, it's just remaining humble and having that level of respect, going, I'm here to do a job, they're doing their job, I'm not better than they are, it's just how it works. And so it's removing the kind of no ego with it, and just being like, cool, yeah, nice.
And I mean, if you want to talk about the dark side, sometimes it can actually make you feel a bit useless in a way, because you suddenly feel like you're in this gilded cage a bit. You're being
so used to just self-sufficient, and then suddenly we're like, can we get you another drink? Do you want some of that?
Like,
I can do it myself.
I can wipe my own ass, thank you very much.
But then it causes trouble if you're like, oh, I can do it myself. They go, no. And then they get like, they can't do their job because you're being a prick now. And it's like, oh, I'm too nice. And it's just let them get the Coke, you know, bring you your dinner. That's what they're doing. They've got a job to do. We've got a job to do. And it's It's just being
It's just
respectful
logistics,
and being
it's
like,
not.
thank you. And, you know, it's the industry. People are there's a lot of cogs doing a lot of things, and just because you are the talent, I think you should never let it get you carried away.
Yeah.
But you do have to respect that's just how it is.
Yeah, you're there. Don't be the cunt.
Exactly. They're there to look after you. You're there to be doing this job, and it doesn't make you a prick. I think that's it took a long while for me to kind of come to terms with that, and turning up to a place and having someone look after you and wait on you, and it's like, whoa, okay.
And that kind of takes us into a different direction before we get to the big main event.
Oh.
But speaking of a completely different environment, I'm curious what musical comedy does in prison.
Oh,
So I had Tattoo Dave on, and he talked about wholesome prison blues. But I would love to hear your perspective on it, because obviously, again, you're the musical comedian in this hard man environment. So what was that experience for you?
Well, when Dave approached me and asked me to do it, he was like, we're going to do some prison gigs. Do you want to come into prison? And I didn't understand why. I thought I'm the last person that should be going into a prison, because it's not an environment I'd ever had any experience in. I didn't really know anyone that'd been to prison.
I mean, you're the sweetest of boys, you know.
I didn't run around with like a bad crowd, you know, and so I was like scared. I was like, oh my god. And then but then you sort of realise that they are just they're just punters at the end of the day, really. And
frankly, some of our punters should be in prison.
Well, that's it. I'm looking at them going, I'm like maybe a few steps away from this myself, you know. It's very humbling, and it's very it really like changes your worldview a lot as well. But what was important was just not pandering and not condescending them. You know, we went in and we were like from the top, we are comedians, we're going to treat you guys like any other crowd. If you want to be pricks, we'll give it back to you. You know, this is what's going to happen. And like, I think they respected that, and they were like, oh, they're here to do a show. They're here to treat us like normal people. And that changed the energy. I was very nervous because we were going in with like, you know, Paddy Linton and Mikey and Jackie Trainer, and all these people were like, Glasgow fucking yeah, man, you know, big like that kind of material that they would relate to, and I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out and sing a song. But then one of the greatest live moments of my whole career was in I can't remember which prison. I probably shouldn't name it anyway. But we were in a prison, and it was a daytime show.
Right.
And
did they do a lot of nighttime shows in prison?
We did a couple. Like Barlini was kind of evening time. Mostly they were during the days. Barlini was maybe dinner time, just before dinner time. So this one was like an afternoon one. And they were a kind of rowdy crowd. They were like, you know, acting the hard man, being all that. And then I come out and I do a song, and it goes pretty good. And then I do the dinosaur song.
Yeah.
And there was this moment where they're all like, oh, you know, and they're kind of getting into it. And then I do the om nom 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 he went line, and they just buckled. And this row of massive hard bastards just went, and like they were almost on the floor. Like it was such a visceral, emotional reaction to just like the beauty of nonsense, and they were just like allowed to be silly and not have to worry about prison, you know. And they were suddenly in this headspace of this weird little man is singing about dinosaurs, and it was freeing. It was beautiful, and this emotional outburst. I've never had a reaction like it, and it stuck with me, you know, because it was them just being free and just all emotion, all the tension was gone, and they were just like, oh, just laughing. And it's a beautiful thing.
You reckon there's someone in prison right now who's got that song stuck in their head?
Well, some of them did, because I would do the MD 2020 one sometimes, and they'd be like, it's catchy, man, yes. And we'd go back. What was really weird was we did a gig once, and it was... We had a female audience initially, and one of them had seen me at a gig on the outside.
Oh.
So we're sitting in the back, they all come in, and they're like, there's a bunch of them looking round at me, and she's pointing, and I'm like,
oh, you're gonna get it.
And she's pointing at me, and I'm like, what is going on? And then I come on stage, and she's like, I seen you. And I'm like, what? And she's like, I seen you at Granny Gibbs. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, it's him, he's smashing goals. And I'm like, all right, okay. So this poor woman not only had to go to a gig at Granny Gibbs, but she's now in prison. It just got worse and worse. So that was very surreal, that I had like a fan from the real world.
A fan base, you have a prison fan base now.
So weird.
Which is, hang on, if anyone ever gives you shit, I could be like, I'm connected.
I know these mad ladies inside.
I know some people on the inside.
But yeah, sometimes we would go back and people would recognise you, and they'd be like, oh, you're doing that, and they'd sing your song, and it's like, this is so cool, And it has been very surreal, the whole prison business, but it has taught me a lot, and it's really, I think, strengthened all of us performance-wise, because it tightens you. You can't let anything slip. Like you can't show any kind of like, not weakness, but like you've got to be strong. You've got to be boom. You've got to be on it, because if
whatever happens, you just have to bullshit your way through it.
Oh yeah, if you give them anything, they're going to be on top of you, heckle, and you just got to be like, and just power through it. And it really tightened all the instincts and senses, And I think crowd work side of things is much better since doing that, because you just talk to them and you have to come up with stuff, and it's just... I'd recommend them to anyone. They really have been an amazing experience.
Go to prison, guys.
Go to prison. Really good
as a performer.
Really good food in most of them, actually.
Oh, yeah,
which is really weird.
Was it? I don't know if I want to spoil this, but like someone was saying there was one specific prison that had the best fucking chips.
So I still have not been to Shots prison,
right.
And that is apparently the greatest chips on the inside or outside that Mikey Motion has ever had. The best chips apparently ever.
I haven't even asked, but how does your mum take to you just going in and out of prison all the time, Eddie?
Well. So I don't think she really understood initially, but she is like, so she's on the city council in Inverness. So she does a lot of kind of outreach stuff.
Okay.
And one of my friends growing up, his dad was a minister, and he would do a lot of prison chaplain stuff. So I think she was like, okay, he's going in and he's helping folk and he's delivering, entertainment, he's going in. So I think she was quite proud of me for doing that.
And there's something that Dave mentioned as well, that there was some pushback from the outside of people being like, oh, entertainment for prisoners.
Oh, it's the same bastards that go on about, why are we housing immigrants, why don't we look after our own? And then they'll turn around and go, well, I don't want to house them either. It's absolute hypocrisy. And these people that are like, well, it's all right to entertain prisoners, why not spend that money on people with cancer? It's like, you can do both. What are you talking about? Yeah. Going into prison doesn't take away from anyone. All it does is add to their way of life. And
if anything, it gives them perspective.
And it helps with rehabilitation. It helps with, basic human dignity at the end of the day. And the only people that complain about acts going into prison are wankers, to put it nicely. They are the exact
They're
same.
from the sweetest boy in the Scottish comedy.
I mean, there's only so many ways to sugarcoat it. They are exactly the same hypocritical people who are like, oh, I don't want to help them, we should help them. Oh, but I don't want to help them either if it comes out of my pocket, you know. And they just, they're not happy with anything, and they don't want to lend a hand to anybody, and all they want to do is complain. And
so get it up, yes.
Exactly. Where's the problem? You know. And it's that thought of just basic human decency is alien to them. You know, the concept of going out of your way to help somebody. Oh, no, not in my little England. No, thank you. So it's very strange. Most people,
I was just curious because, like,
most people are very sound about it. So
it just goes to show the internet will fucking. There'll be someone pissed off about something, you know.
It's the Daily Mail comment section.
Yeah, well, who was it? Like, fucking, like you post the sweetest image, like whatever, of like a puppy, and someone's like, "Fuck this puppy specifically." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. What about cats? You know, there's always some complaint from somebody, and it's that way where it's like, well, why are you doing that when you could do this? We can do both of them.
Yeah,
what are you talking about? It doesn't retract from anything. Oh, silly people.
Well, I guess that brings us to the main event, the latest chapter in your saga so far, which is you're going to be part of a lot of people's nightmares, Eddie.
Oh dear.
They took the sweetest man in Scottish comedy and they gave him weapons and a mask. And you are doing things to people that I don't think should be done.
I wouldn't encourage it, no. Yes.
So we should probably say, so you're playing Piglet. It's out now, so we can't say it.
It is. It's officially had an American release. Yeah. So
you're playing Piglet in Winnie the Pooh 2 Blood and Honey.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how does that come out? Like, what?
It has been the most surreal time, because it's all been nuts. To begin with, when did I hear about it? So it was, I think,
before you even get into this, does Piglet sing at any moment in this film?
There is no singing Piglet in this one.
Okay, just checking. I don't want to spoil anything.
The suggestion of a musical has been suggested. So,
it has been. Okay.
Buffy style musical.
Where film. You like the whole time, like, guys.
So you never know. We'll see.
But murder.
They want to make like 1,000 of them. So at some point there might be a musical version.
Again, we don't want to fucking ruin anything. But they announced that there's going to be a whole lineup.
Oh,
and there's going to be an Avengers style reunion.
There's going to be Winnie the Pooh 3, and there's a Peter Pan one being made.
Yeah, there's a Bambi one.
Yeah. Pinocchio, Cinderella. It's going to be nuts. They basically want to make...
I'm pretty sure I saw this. This was online, so I'm not like rude or anything. But there was going to be like a whole Monsters Ball.
Well, that's it. The Pooniverse coming together.
The Pooniverse.
That's what they've called it. It's a beautiful name. But the whole thing has been ludicrous. So obviously the first one came out last year and was just this massive cult hit. It didn't have a cinema release originally.
Yeah.
It was out on Amazon Prime, and then Mexico, for some reason, is just nuts for like cult low budget horror. They love it. So Mexico put on a premiere. They got in touch with the company and were like, we want to screen this. And so they set up a premiere. They built parts of the set. They had people in costume, and it was this huge thing. And they went, oh, okay. So then they got a few in Britain. They got a few in America. They built. And it went from being like a 50K low budget film to making £5 million in the box office and DVD sales. Which is just utterly insane.
This is where it gets very interesting and really good for you, because they go, we're gonna make a sequel. We already know we have a cult thing. People are into it. We're gonna up the ante. We're gonna bring the band together, And you're stepping into something where it's like, yeah, I mean, you never know 100%, but it was looking like it was gonna be. So if they don't fuck it up, it was gonna fucking smash.
Man, the fan base is wild. They're so passionate, and it's big old boots to fill. But basically, so it must have been back in like June, I think, last year, and my agent texted me and was like, "I've sent you an email about a job. Go and check it out, see what you think." And normally that means I've got a self-tape to do, and it's some nonsense where I've got to throw popcorn at myself in a car ad or something ridiculous.
Santa Claus is coming around.
So and I'm like, okay, cool, let's check it out. And the subject line was Blood and Honey 2, and I went, the Winnie the Pooh film? Oh, maybe there's an audition for that. And I read the email, and it said, "Dear Victoria, such and such. If Eddie is still interested, we'd love to cast him in the role of Piglet."
So it wasn't even an audition.
And there was no audition. I didn't know that I was interested. I became very interested. So she had basically seen the casting call, and had just submitted me.
And as an agent was, Eddie's very interested.
She went, "There we go, Eddie, that'll do, Pigman." And I was like, "Thanks." And then for whatever reason, they looked at all the weirdos.
Psychotic Pigman.
Psychotic Pigman. They looked at all the freaks and weirdos that had submitted for it, and they went, "Eddy MacKenzie, that'll do." And I'm like, "What?" And so I didn't audition. I didn't talk to any of them, apart from via email.
Where you go method for this one, where?
And then I turn up on the day to like do the first scenes, and they were like, "Yeah, it was your energy, man. You just had this like, I don't know." And I'm like, "What?" Because my show reel is pretty normal. It's from like there's like a film noir detective thing, and then there's like a character that I did, and it's pretty normal.
You put your TV things on there?
No, because they're not technically like acting.
Yeah, but you've been on the telly.
Yeah,
I would personally. I would put something of it.
What I need to do is make like a TV reel, which is like a personality reel type.
Yeah.
But yeah, my acting show reel was pretty normal, I thought. But they were like, you just had this energy. You had this like, ooh, and I was like, okay, cool, whatever, man. And so when I turn up, we do Piglet. The whole process is just amazing. It's definitely the biggest thing I've ever been a part of. Suddenly, this like still low budget, but like it's like cinema, and it's like big cameras and like smoke machines and all the setup, and I'm like, oh my god. And so we do all that. It's quick. It's like a month altogether. The whole shoot, very speedy. And then we sort of wait for a while, and they were like, so they were talking about a January release,
right?
And then it became a February release, and then finally March they had the London premiere, which was a beautiful evening. Oh my god! I got interviewed by IGN.
Okay, wow. Okay.
What? I really want to see it. The interview hasn't come out yet, but it was really good fun because we just talked about like games and stuff, and it was excellent. And then there was like a photographer, and there was all the red carpet stuff, and we watched the film, and we were like, it was so cool. And then it's had a run in America. It's had three nights in America. I believe it's going to Mexico next, and then Australia, and then Japan's getting it. It's getting dubbed into Japan.
Japan's getting Eddy MacKenzie. I can't go into this because obviously that would count as a spoiler. But you've got the mask on for the whole thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's an incredible piece because it's silicone and it's multiple parts, so it's not like one big mask. It is molded on my face, so it is like it's me but not.
Right.
Like, so they've basically got it. There is a master plaster cast of Eddy MacKenzie's head.
A master plaster.
A master plaster cast of Eddy MacKenzie.
Here comes the music out again.
In a workshop outside Leeds, there is my head just chilling, and so they could recreate anything off it. Really, it's quite scary.
Yeah, they're good.
You could do anything, but then they basically molded. And it's like silicone and latex, I think. And so there were multiple parts. So there's a back bit, which was kind of like Batman's cowl.
Yeah.
So that went over the ear, and that was the ears. And then all of these bits were all individual. So it took about an hour and a half
To put it on.
So
And
you're
that's every
sitting there.
morning.
And that's every time. So I would get the costume on, and then we'd go to makeup, and I would sit there for an hour and a half, and it was really relaxing. Like, I really enjoy just sitting about doing nothing, especially having little cold and wet and weird sensations on the face.
Yeah.
Getting the cast done was like one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was like a spa day, because I turn up and they do the nose first, so they have your nostrils are open, and then they let that set, and then they're like, right, close your eyes, close your mouth, we'll see you in an hour. And then they just cover you in this I don't know what it is. It's not plaster. This was the initial rubber, maybe. So it's a rubber thing, and they just cover you in it, and it's sticky, and it's just, and they're molding it into your head, and they're getting, this is so it's like a sticky mold, and it's everywhere. And I was just sat there, and there are photos of it. It's so weird. I look like the Baron from Dune, you know.
Ooh, yeah.
Where it's just clay, and I'm just sat there, and I'm like, so relaxing. And they would tap you on the shoulder and be like, "Are you okay?" And I'd be like, "Good," because you couldn't talk, you couldn't hear.
Oh my god!
Couldn't see.
Okay. So
it was
literally.
What do they call that? The sensory deprivation.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would do this every week if I could. And it was just so chill. And all you're doing is just breathing through your nose. You can't
Do you
talk.
listen to music? Do you do it
Well, you can't hear because it's covered. So
Aye.
I was literally just thoughts, and occasionally we're like, "Are you still alive?" And they just tap it away, and then eventually it sets, and they rip it off you, and then they make the plaster cast, and it's just, the whole process was insane. The people behind it, lovely people. A couple called Sean and Paula, who are just literally a husband and wife team that did it all. Insane.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got an assistant guy, co-worker as well, who's really cool, and someone else.
So I want to ask you about this, because I didn't take you for a horror fan.
Well, I'm not.
I'm a worse. I've been watching, because of Alan, because he's got a podcast called Blood, Sweat and Fears.
Yes.
I've been watching that one, so sometimes we watch movies together in preparation for that. So I've been exposed to horror.
Yes.
It's not my go-to genre. It took me a lot to sort of work myself into that mindset. But I'm still fascinated about being in one. I would still love to do one.
Well, I was the same. I would never call myself a horror fan. But then, doing this and then I've done a whole bunch of podcasts and interviews and stuff about it and things. And people always ask what's your favorite horror movies? And I was like, okay, I do actually like a lot of horror movies. But I like a specific type of horror movie. I like this kind where it's practical effects, low budget, B movie, silly, because it is still silly. This one's more serious, but there are still so many moments where you're like, whoa! And some of the kills are just ridiculous, and you're like, whoa!
And just brutal violence.
And I love that. It's not real, and I love zombie movies and John Carpenter films and anything that's practical effects. I keep hitting the microphone, I'm so sorry. Practical effects, blood and guts, and you're like, whoa! And it's that kind of it's that nervous, whoa! And then, bless them, I went down to my agent, and there were other people sat with me, and they were like, oh my god! And I'm like, ha! Because it's just so ridiculous.
The dark side of it.
I don't like.
You're stuck here with me.
Yeah, like I love that, not like ridiculous, violent nonsense. I don't like paranormal stuff,
right?
Because
psychological stuff.
Well, I'll take a thriller. I like a thriller. I don't like ghosts and demons and things because it's like a weird like religious upbringing hangover. I'm like, I don't know if I believe in them, but you shouldn't fuck with them. Like, don't be messing with the demons and shit, man.
Leave them alone. Yeah, that's like, yeah.
So whenever I watch like a film where it's like The Exorcist or like Insidious and stuff like that, I'm like, oh no, possession. Because I know people who've like done exorcisms. Like, I know people who've been to America and seen possessed people, and I'm like, no, don't be messing with that voodoo, doojoo, hoojoo. Not good.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole different topic. But I grew up heavily religious, and my parents, they still believe in it. They still believe. I'm not a big believer. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah.
Because I believe that mental health is so we barely scratch the surface. And some of the things I feel like were just an easy way to explain some serious, genuine mental health issues.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I think the mind that is not as fascinating enough without getting the supernatural involved. But I can see how, there could be some weird shit out there that makes you actually question things.
Oh yeah.
And then obviously the Vatican did used to have a genuine exorcist brigade.
Yeah.
So it is like, the fuck.
Spooky stuff. But this is good, and this is, it's absolutely my kind of horror movie. Big, silly, nonsense, violent ridiculouslusness. Because I love like all the John Carpenter stuff, all the like 80s B-movie horror. I was trying to watch a bunch of like stuff recently. Because I realised, maybe I do like horror movies. Yeah. But the right kind of horror movies,
I hate the ones that have jump scares in them.
Oh, it's cheap.
I hate them because I just go, no.
I'm like, oh no.
I don't know if there's some sort of weird trauma that I'm working on, but it's like,
it's not good, and it's not like good horror. It's a cheap scare, is what it is. Whereas, like, if you actually like build the tension properly and get it, it's very good. So hopefully, I really enjoyed Blood and Honey 2, not just because of this guy. He did a pretty good job. But it is a fun film.
Yeah, no. But I will probably check it out. I don't want to spoil it, but was there anything that you personally had to do on set as part of the story? You're like, my poor bum.
Nothing that I had. Nothing I had any problems with. There was a lot of like.
I mean, we're not talking about the classic Hollywood orgies. There's Thanksgiving, but
they really did good on like gross out stuff.
Yeah.
So like Piglet is a messy little character. So half the time the makeup team were just putting more like gunk in and amongst my nose and like mouth and stuff. So a lot of it's like he's really shiny and like gooey and like so he's a pretty disgusting little creature. And I did like stunts and things, like very basic stunt work, but like because it's all practical effects and stuff. So you did like physical stunts and things. That was cool. It's just incredible experience. Everyone was amazing. The film is just so wonderfully ridiculous at times. I don't know when it's coming out. That's the thing.
Yeah, fair enough. We don't want to spoil it either because it still hasn't come out. But it is obviously there's going to be a lot more stories once it comes out. You can go into detail.
So many reviews, like the Americans love it. We were 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes for a while.
You're 80% last night.
Now,
you were 80% last night.
So we'll take 80
from the public, the critics. I'm sorry.
The critics don't matter.
We had this chat with Alan yesterday. Like, I respect the hustle, but I just don't give a fuck. Like,
they are professional haters.
You've done, and again, there's validity to it, but for me, critics are like you've built up an audience to listen to your opinion, and that is fair, and that's what we're doing. That's what this podcast is. That's what many podcasts are. Fair fucks. I respect that. Other than that, I'm not going to put you on a pedestal.
And they're often looking at it with eyes that are very different to a normal movie watch.
Yeah.
A critic will see things and go, oh, they didn't do, the story beat here was such and such. And the average movie watcher is going to be like, that was cool, So critics generally a little over-analysis, I think, and they're overly critical.
But please come see the show, give us good reviews, 5 stars, all
yes,
around,
Mark Commode, I love you.
Has he reviewed the first one?
Oh, probably.
Is there a chance he's going to review this one? Because I would fucking watch. I would watch him reviewing.
So I have no idea. He's a big horror fan, Mark Commode. Because he always talks about The Exorcist. Being like his favourite film of all time. So if Mark Commode reviewed Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2, that would be freaking cool. Because we've had a good spread. Obviously, some people don't like it. That's fine.
I'm a bit squeamish about the violence myself, but I will have to check it out just for you.
There are, I believe, the cast. There were about 100 people, including all the extras, and the death count is just out of this world. It's truly, I can't remember what the figure is, but it's just almost like the third act is like just the amount of fake blood flying around, and it's just like, come on, and it just keeps going, and it's so brutal, and it's amazing.
No, I mean, in a weird way, I'm actually genuinely fascinated by it, because I'm curious where they're gonna take it.
Yeah, well, that's it.
Obviously, they're up in the ante, and they're kind of building this universe, and it makes sense from what they've established and what they've announced, So you got the Winnie the Pooh gang, you've got Bambi, you've got Pinocchio. You said you've got, what was the other one? Cinderella, Peter Pan. And to be fair, a lot of these, they lend themselves to horror. There's horror elements in the original tales, as you said yourself. So it's gonna be interesting on what they can actually do with it. And is it just gonna be gore and mayhem and nonsense, or will they find a way to get some sort of perspective into it as well, or a point of view?
Well,
and I don't. Does it even need a point of view?
Yeah, I will. The story in number 2 is much better than number 1, because number 1 didn't have a story really in so much. But number 2 is very good. It goes into really good detail about the characters and the origins. Simon Callow is in the film. Like, do you know Simon Callow?
I'm thinking Simon Cowell.
He's like one of these proper old classic English actors. He's been in everything. He's been in like 4 Weddings and a Funeral. He's one of these guys where he's like, I'm going to see him and be like, oh, yes. Simon Callow.
But I'm blanking right now.
He's just up there with all the old, like, he's up there with like Ian McKellen, Patrick Stewart.
Right, okay.
So, he's that level of British theatre actor.
So they went all out. Like, they're taking this very seriously. There's a lot of heart and a lot of...
apparently he just sits about and goes, well, I've got an afternoon, let's do a film, and we'll just do weird moments. But he threw himself into this. He does this very good Scottish accent, like proper West Coast. You're like, oh, that's good, Simon. Like, normally someone doing a Scottish accent is cringe, but
I'm trying my best though.
I was watching it, I was
excuse me,
and he's like really good. I was like, oh my god, I believe he could be a wee Scottish guy from the West Coast. And he comes in and he does like a lot of the kind of backstory. He tells a lot of the plot, and he's just like in another actor's hands.
It would have been like,
okay, here we go. Here's the exposition dump. But he just, he's chewing it up, and he's rubbing, and he's just like, oh, fantastic. It's Simon Callow, it's fantastic. So That's amazing. People freak out when they hear he's in it. Like, what? Simon Callow? Yeah, Eddy MacKenzie's in it as well. Come on now.
Don't forget about the real stuff.
It's a huge cast. Everyone was really cool. The team behind it, like the creative people, just insane. The stuff, the cinematography. Like, there are moments in it where you're like, you can't believe what you're watching some of the time, like the shots and like the lighting. Oh, it's very.
You know what? You sold me on it. I am going when it's gonna come out. I'm gonna go and watch it.
And this is what the majority of the reviews are. They're like, how is it this good? What have they done? And it's just, they had more money and they were able to do what they wanted to do because the talent was there. Like in the first film, I watched the first film with my flatmate after I got casted, and I hadn't seen it before. And he's a photographer, and he kept commenting on the lighting in the first film and how like stunning the lighting was. So even in the first film, with like micro budget, they still were pushing what they could do. And this film, Blood Money 2, it's beautiful. And I don't just say that because I'm in it. I've been in a lot of stinkers.
Name a couple.
And I've done so many like wee student films over the years that have never seen the light of day.
Man needs the footage, you know. Like,
and you do them because it's your friends and you want to get the footage and all that. And half the time you don't even see the film and you're like, okay, cool. But yeah, Blood Money 2 is a lot of fun, and it's just been the weirdest experience, all in all, just since getting cast and being part of this world. It's just crazy. People are so passionate about it.
I feel like this is gonna take the O2 Arena to new level.
I just keep, as I say, falling into the next thing, and it just gets more and more ridiculous. I just don't know what's going on anymore. Crazy town.
You know what? I feel like that has been Eddy MacKenzie, the story so far, and it just keeps fucking rolling, baby.
Ooh. Oh, it's been a wild ride.
Thank you so much.
But bless you. Thank you very much, sir. It's been a pleasure.